Hello again from Kilgore, Texas. This is Jill Powers. And I was looking through my video list and I realized in my first introduction, I never continued from there. And the next subject I was going to talk about was my professional mentors and what they meant to me and how they changed my life. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because the influence they could have on especially young people, but on anybody. They can really change how you you see your life. And I've met some extraordinary people in my journey, but these two, they stand out as people who, you know, I'll never forget. I will never forget them. And I had planned to show and read from a um, a letter that my first mentor I'm going to be talking about. And this little lady I met as I was struggling, having gone through a divorce at that point in my life, was having a struggle in understanding what direction I wanted to go, whether I wanted to continue with college or just work or get married again or date, whatever. And I was just kind of drifting, and I was working, trying to pay my way through school since my parents couldn't contribute anything to that. And my grades, while good, were not good enough to get scholarships at the time. Now they give out scholarships like crazy. But back then, not so much, even when you had a lot of academic achievements like I did. And being a student leader in high school, and I had a lot of awards and things, but that was um, not magna or summa cum laude. I was simply an honor graduate. Yeah, well, you know, 84, 84th in a class of 483. It's not too bad. But I had some grades of classes I took that I probably shouldn't have, but was exploring, what I wanted to do in high school, and there you go. I mean, sometimes you get classes where you're not making such good grades, and it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means that you needed to improve and concentrate, or else take classes that were more in line with what your talents are. And certainly I was very busy in high school, but then I got to college and I had no direction whatsoever. My parents never went to college, okay? Um, Cotton farmer and his wife, who had to start working when at a very crucial time when I was just entering high school, and he would not be diagnosed with epilepsy until I was 22, and um, entering my first marriage, which ended after 2.5 years. I don't abide a cheater or someone who's abusive, and he was both. So I divorced him. Yes, I left him, and I've never regretted that. In fact, it was quite acrimonious for a really long time, which is funny because now he is a friend with me on Facebook. Um, he was finally able to put that past him, despite the fact that he also defrauded me out of some money. So, but I'm a forgiving person, and let bygones be bygones, because it doesn't do any good to ruminate over those kinds of past mistakes. Anyway, I was struggling to kind of identify what what career path I wanted to do. I wasn't sure about teaching because, I'm a pretty opinionated person, and that has got me in trouble at times, being opinionated and speaking out. But I can't help that. I'm a Jackson. In fact, my maiden name should have been Jackson if my dad hadn't been raised by my great aunt, who she adopted him, and he took the name Ragland. So Ragland was my maiden name, but it should have been Jackson. And yes, if you're wondering if that had to do with Stonewall Jackson, yes, he is one of my famous relatives. I'm also related to Matthew Thornton, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence, as well as, from what I understand, and this is my understanding, I'm the 21st generation great-granddaughter of Geoffrey Chaucer. Okay, so if there's an explanation for my literary background, it might be that, and my love of literature and discussing literature, film, and anything else pertaining to writing. So, my mentors. I met Dr. Simone Turbyville when I was in my late 20s. It was 1988, and I was taking an undergraduate junior level class in Dante. And I had okay grades up to that point in English, but I freshman comp and standard British surveys or other surveys, they just, the teachers I had, they were okay for the most part. Some of them weren't particularly that great, but meeting Simone changed my life, and I had already read Dante's Inferno, but we read all of La Divina Commedia. And of course, the thing is, Simone is Italian. She was full-blood Italian, and she had 2 PhDs. Yes, 2 PhDs in English. And her first PhD she got when she was 25, and her father and her uncle had both been incarcerated by Mussolini. But when she came to the States, it was the height of McCarthyism in 1952, and they immediately told her, well, we can't let you teach because you're a fascist, even though she wasn't a fascist. They were actually the real Antifa, if you catch my drift. Not Antifa as far as the organization, but actually against fascists. So, but she decided, okay, I'll get another one. And so she went to Indiana University, and she got another PhD, which led me to University of Texas at Arlington, where I was taking the class in Dante, and she introduced this whole new world to me, a whole new world of really, really intense study of books, not this kind of milksop stuff that they teach in high school at any level, or in college at any level. It was real focused, and she was really an expert. And of course, she could also speak Italian, so she could read the whole, Commedia in the vernacular Italian. So amazing woman. Okay, amazing for her time, or for any time. But and she was quite a spitfire. I remember her fondly. She passed away in 2009, but I will never forget her. But I struggled a little bit at first, and came time for midterms, and I had done done my essay to turn in for midterms. I always kind of modeled the way I would handle final exams the way that she did them, and that was partly with part multiple choice, which we'd take in class, and part essay that we could do at home and hand in. And the essay that I did for my midterm, I got it back and I got a C on it. And I was so angry. I was so angry when I got this paper back that I just, I was just screaming and crying and threw it down in the trash, and I was going to drop the class. But then I calmed down and I started looking at her comments, and I thought, she's completely right. I had good ideas, but I'm disorganized. Pure chaos. And I started really knuckling down, and by the end of the semester, I had pulled my grades up to an A. And from there, for the rest of my undergraduate career there at UTA, I was in intensive study, and I made honor rolls and distinguished honor rolls, and I became secretary treasurer of the German club, and then president of the German club, first non-major to do so in that context. And they don't even teach German there anymore, so that tells you something about how the language requirements and offerings have changed over the years. It was a very, very popular program at the time, and I made a lot of money for them as president. Yep, I sure did. But and that's why I became president in the first place. And I had been asked by one of the German professors there. And eventually I was also asked to join the German National Honor Society. It was, my grades were, I had just a little bit below the 4.0. Is like, you have to have a 3.75, which I did. I had exactly that, and so I was inducted into that. I was also as far as Simone's influence, she became my mentor, took me under her wing, and my senior year was very, very intensive literary study, finishing up my required classes for my major, and graduated in July of 1990 with my bachelor's. But she immediately got me into graduate school, and that's when I first started teaching, was in the fall of 1990. Started teaching freshman comp. I taught there, had fellowships for 2 years, and then I was working full time after that and living in Dallas and finishing up going to school, and but she had all of the great works, great classical works that I really focused on was because of her, because of her influence, and especially in continental literature, things that frankly I would never have read, and that's something that I continue to do today is educate people about great works that they should read, that they will never get in any class unless they take it with me. Okay, so being a mentor means becoming a mentor to others, in my opinion, especially if you're going to teach. If you're going to teach, you need to learn. That is one of the most important roles that you take, is you're going to have some students who stand out, and when they do, and if they're willing, if think they've got the right stuff, then sure, I'll mentor them, and I will give them recommendation letters or whatever they needed. Just because someone makes an A in my class doesn't mean that I'm going to mentor them or give them recommendations, though, and I want to emphasize that. I supposedly got in trouble for not giving recommendations for a student who had A's. I said, this person makes A's, but they're late all the time, and they're often not in class, or they're not paying attention. Not that they're not overall smart, but late with papers. And I said that this isn't someone who's going to succeed in graduate school, and I'm certainly not going to give them recommendations to Vanderbilt. Okay, and if you're not, you as another colleague, if you're not willing to give them A's, but you're trying to force me to give recommendations for them, and I gave them A's, I mean, come on, that's insane. I don't have to do any of that. And so this person took their revenge on me and had really done horrible things to my career, but be that as it may. When I finished my master's degree, I took comprehensive exams for that rather than choosing to do a thesis. I had tried to whip out a thesis. I was working on Tom Jones, and I decided I didn't want to do that. I would just go ahead and take the test, which consists, it's very much like qualification exams. You have to endure 2 days of being tested. You do one essay on one day, there's 3 hours, and the next essay on the next day, and that's another 3 hours, and you use all that time, and you write the whole time that you're doing that. And I did that. I passed the first time. I knew people who did not pass their comprehensives or the qualification exams for dissertation. And I gotta tell you, I mean, it's pretty soul crushing when that happens. Generally, that means that they are not going to continue with the program. They get two strikes. 2 strikes, and you're out. Okay? Out of the program. And if your grade average drops below a 3.0 generally in graduate schools for English classes, for English departments, that also constitutes kicking them out of the program. I don't know how W or Obama managed to stay in graduate school when they were obviously not doing that well. And Obama actually lost his law license as a result of fraud. So, I mean, let's see how that went. Well, not all of us have rich donors or daddies paying for their way, and certainly mine didn't. But be that as it may, so it took me 4 years instead of 2 years to get through my master's program, because I was working part-time and full-time, whatever I could to, and I taught for some of that, and some of that I was also working as a private investigator for a medical insurance business, meaning like doing physicals, or my mother did blood draws. That's how I got into the business, was working for her part of the time. And I started doing these Equifax type profiles where I would interview people over the phone or in person, whichever it called for. Biggest case I did was $15 million business beneficiary I did on a guy named William Lyons, and that was when I was living out in Anaheim, California. My brief stay out there in 1987. And then in 1988 I came back, and that's when I continued my undergraduate career. But Anyway, we're all the way up to 1994. So December of 1994, I graduated, got my master's degree in English, and said goodbye to my mentor. And I visited her after that a few times, but I was very busy after that because after I graduated, I applied for my PhD at Texas Tech, and fall of 1995 is when I moved to Lubbock and got my Amiga computer that I used to write my dissertation on. Looked like some kind of space age device, to be honest, but it was well. It looked like something off a spaceship. Had holes drilled in the side of it to make it look like, a spaceship. But anyway, I remember that DOS-based programs and floppy disk and everything we used to use. But anyway, I started. My very first semester, I met my next mentor, and this was a man who is still alive. He just retired this past year. His name is Dr. Bruce Clark. And what is Bruno known for? Well, besides being, very brilliant guy who I was taking literary criticism from at the time, and I'd already taken some literary criticism while doing my master's, but I never went to conferences or did anything like that because Simone, to be quite honest, thought it was bullshit. She thought it was a waste of time, that we should emphasize teaching, we shouldn't emphasize publish or perish, and she refused to, and that's why she stayed an associate professor her entire time there, despite the fact that she had more qualifications than anybody else to actually be chair of the department, and maybe even dean of the arts and humanities. So, but I tended to agree with her that it's kind of silly that we have to apply for these academic journals, and they are refereed by other scholars, but we see what has happened in recent years with scholars, that they're become an untrustworthy bunch, and they're often very subjective, and they're not entirely professional in that respect, and especially with all the activism going on. But anyway, start off with Bruno Clark, and you think, well, who could you meet in Lubbock, Texas, who would be influential? Well, Buddy Holly was from Lubbock, okay, and Mac Davis, and I think it was Roy Orbison, maybe, from Lubbock. I'm trying to think, but anyway, there are other famous people, and other Texas Tech people, and including the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback right now. So he's from Texas Tech. Texas Tech is a huge campus, and generally they only have about 25 to 30,000 students, but it is a big place. So anyway, I was taking literary criticism with him, and one thing that I'd had some papers that I'd done using science as a how should I put it, a framework for understanding the work. And when I did things like that, it was really something different. I had done one on Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 in discussion of the thermodynamic element of how book paper burns, okay, the temperature at which book paper burns. And I thought, well, this would be my opportunity. You know, and because I was doing so well in the class, he asked me to join his literature and science class the next semester, which I did. And it just took off from there. And I started applying it to the papers I was writing for my classes that I was getting through the program. But I'll be honest with you, I was having a lot of difficulties because, see, I was already in my mid-30s by that time, and I was, you know, way behind what other people were doing. But I had, before I'd even left to go to Tech, I started having migraines, and I couldn't figure out, you know, what is causing these migraines. It was high blood pressure and stress. It's graduate school is very stressful, and you know, at the time I wasn't really dating, didn't have time to date and go out, and you know, why didn't I have family? I had boyfriends every once in a while, but I mean, generally in my 30s, no, I didn't. I just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked myself to death. And was gaining weight, having all kinds of issues with these migraines. And one day I was sitting at a red light, and I felt myself falling backwards through a tunnel. And it didn't take me long to snap out of it, but it startled me so much because I'm not the kind of person who passes out. And so I went to my doctor, and they did a CAT scan. They found a pituitary tumor. And there was it wasn't cancerous, and it hasn't grown ever since. But for a month, I thought I might have cancer, and they finally got around to saying no, it's not cancer. It's just a tumor, and we'll watch it, and just do what you do. And that's why I was having so much trouble with cortisol production and gaining weight, and not being able to keep any of it off, even though I didn't eat that much, and I exercised, just I wasn't able to do so extensively though, and it wouldn't have made a difference at the time. But anyway, tell you about Bruno. To tell you about Bruno, Bruno was one of the original founding members of Sha Na Na, the band Sha Na Na. He was bass player. His band, it was his band to begin with, started as the Kingsmen at Columbia University, and they were playing a set in a club one night, and who should walk in but Jimi Hendrix. And Hendrix just was going on and on about their act, because they were a 50s act, okay? They played 50s songs. And yes, it's the same Sha Na Na in Greece. But Bruno had dropped out by that time. He had gotten married, and he was starting his PhD. He got his PhD, and then started working in Baton Rouge at university there. And then he got the job offer at Texas Tech, and he spent his entire career there. And that in 1995 is when I started. He began mentoring me, And it was because of him I started doing conference circuits. My first conference was in Austin, was a small one. And my second one was in Lubbock for the graduate students, although it was for other people too. And that's when I got my first standing ovation at a conference. I had a second one later on I'll tell you about, but anyway, that I did on Metropolis and Fritz Lang. So anyway, I had, in 1998, I moved back to Fort Worth, and I met who became my third husband, although we didn't get married until 2003, and that was also the year that I got hired at Fisk University. I had been teaching. I taught, golly, how many other places? Let's see, UTA, UT Arlington, Texas Tech. I taught at 3 different campuses of Tarrant County College, which used to be Tarrant County Junior College. I taught at Texas Wesleyan. I taught at Texas Women's University. I taught at the University of North Texas. I actually taught a semester. I should have stayed for the year, but I did one semester as a visiting lecturer at the University of Alabama. Yes, the one in Tuscaloosa. Roll Tide. Okay, Roll Tide. And that was in 2001. I graduated in 2001. I took my qualification exams in 1998. Before that, in 1997, I had turned in my prospectus for my dissertation, and I won the 1997 Texas Tech University-wide Dissertation Fellowship Award. So that's in 1998. I took my quals. I passed those with flying colors. Once again, 2 days of hell, but I did it, and it. So I got through that, and finally, then Bruno mentored me after that. Even as teaching as an adjunct, teaching at all these different places that I taught at before I got hired at Fisk University in the summer of 2003. I just gotten married, and but my husband didn't want to move from where he was, so I had to move out to Nashville by myself and find an apartment in like 2 weeks before semester started, and I had to get my syllabi and everything else ready. But that's pretty much the history of them. And I don't know what to say. Bruno's a great guy. Simone was a wonderful influence. I wanted to read something that she had given to me. She had sent me a Christmas card. I think I'd given her a Christmas present, and she had expressed to me to always be confident in what I did, because I have a kind of a self-esteem issue that way, having had a covert narcissist mother who was rather overbearing, and always put me last, but either love bombing or being a whipping post. So everything's always Jill's fault. That's right. It's always Jill's fault. But anyway, she expressed to me to be confident and to remember that I achieved that on my own. I did not do it the way some students do, on their knees, servicing their professors. I didn't have to do that. I had the brains to do it, and I did it. So, that is the story of Bruno Clark. You can still find his stuff. He does have some videos online. If you look up, it's Clarke, and not Clark, like my name was Clark from my second marriage. So, anyway, yeah. Well, listeners, you know. That's the history of my mentors, and I have been a mentor. I have many students. My very first student to graduate with a PhD, he actually was in my literary criticism class, and did a paper on the new historicist Althusser on the color purple, and he graduated with honors, even though he was a religion philosophy major, but he graduated, and after he graduated, he got accepted into Dartmouth University, went straight into the PhD program, and he took that paper and made it into what became his dissertation, and he is a professor now and mentors other students. Proudest moment of my life. And yes, he's black. And most of my students at Fisk were black, because there's like a 99.9% percentage of the students there are black. So, and since then I have had others, including the dean's son, God rest his soul, Revis Mitchell, kind man. His son was in my class, and I helped mentor him. I helped, I hope I did well for him. Dr. Centauria Meddards, she's a behavioral PhD now, even though she was an English major back then. And I've have many students who went on to become went on to law school and became lawyers, and some who became nurses. But generally speaking, and some of them we've remained friends over the years, and I continue to be there for them if they need me. And that, I think that's what I always wanted from mentors, is a little bit of guidance. And because I'm a lifelong student, if you're going to teach, I think you should be a lifelong student. You should have a natural intellectual curiosity. So be that as it may, I will wrap this up with saying, Simone, I dearly miss you. I consider you my Italian mama. And Bruno, I don't know if you're still in Lubbock, or if you're, if you've left. I saw that you were in Maryland doing some things, and God knows you've earned a rest. You've been very prolific in your publishing and everything else that you did, but you changed my life too, and let me do the literature and science thing. And it's I'm a literary chaotician because of him. Anyway, that's it for today, and I will wrap it up, and y'all have a nice week.